go over this again. So basically, I want to go over how I set up for doing anything when it comes to building a story and building out an idea. The first thing I do when I build out a story or build out an idea is I put all my ideas down onto a note. And that's step number one. The second thing, after I put them down on a note, and I could do it in a voice note or I could do it in a voice to text note because I don't like typing and I'm bad with texting on my phone, my fingers, using my big thumbs. So I like once I got it in a note, I go ahead and take that note and I transcribe that note. I might use Descript to transcribe that note if I did it full straight audio. And then I'll take that note that's transcribed and I'll take it into a ChatGPT, and with the ChatGPT, I'll use that to organize my ideas into some kind of an outline. This is where the meat comes in right here, because now I've got all my idea, I've got it organized in the outline. Now I have a guideline, some kind of guideline to go by to where I'm going to go with this whole idea. Now that I have the idea, the notes for the idea, the outline for the idea, and any other thoughts or anything I'd like to put into it, I start writing those ideas down and putting them as well on the idea document. So now that I've got all the idea documents in order and everything's the way it's supposed to be, at least for what I want for that moment, that's when I turn around and I say, okay, let's pop open the Signalproof Analyzer. Now that's a tool that I built, and that particular tool has a way to analyze things using data or using subsets or formulas from test and measurements, different analytical studies, different programs that have put together different sets of ways to analyze information on the web, analyze information literature, analyze information from whatever is written literature, or just analyze general communication literature. So I put from 5 to 6 to 7, more like 7 different types of analytical styles within the Signalproof Analyzer, and I put it in the back end and coded it so that it looks for these particular styles in a document. So I have a document in the back end that it reads from that is simply just ways to analyze a particular piece of content. And that's something that I keep inside of the Signalproof Analyzer on purpose, because even though I might be changing what I'm analyzing, the base programming for the analyzer will always have some kind of test and measurements way to analyze information and documents to make sure it can be cleanly done. So once you've got it in the Signalproof Analyzer, I drop in the notes. The first notes that I put in, which are my voice notes. The second set of notes that I put in, which are extra notes that I've added in since I've done the organization of it, and I add in the outline. The reason why I add in all of these things is because now I want the analyzer to break down how this is all working together, if it's all working together, if there's some recommendations I might be missing, if there's some prescriptions to actually make it better. And the things that I'm analyzing is I have a way of doing it, analyzing it 2 ways, right? We can analyze it just by rating it, or we can analyze it by reviewing and rating it. Now, when I use the keyword or the command review in the Signalproof Analyzer, it does both. It does a review, which gives you signals. Signals are the things that stand out amongst whatever you put in there. So those are the signals that are blatantly standing out. So in this case, the signals that will be blatantly stand out is how to use AI to, anything that stands out about how to use AI to particularly write. And so it's going to say that my main signals are probably something to the fact of how I use AI and how I prepare a system for AI and lay out outlines. So because that is the way we want the analyzer to pick up on extra things and pick up on extra information, it's going to read through the information I have in the 2 documents. And it's going to most likely, if I decide, because I have some templates, some prompts that I would give you that kind of give you an outline of the best way an outline of the best way that we can set up or lay out your review status for what you're doing, whether it's a book, whether it's a video. So there is a format for that. Like I said, if it takes on the base format, it will show you signals. Signals will break down each of the main signals. And within those main signals, it'll give you prescription to better that signal. And it'll tell you where noise might be creeping into that signal. So that's the first stage. Second stage is, after that, it tells you all the signals. It's going to start looking at your strengths, your weaknesses. It's going to give you a kind of a SWOT analysis of what you've done. And what I mean by that, it doesn't really go into threats. It mainly focuses on the strengths, weaknesses, and your growth. And so when we talk about that, it's going to start out with growth phase, how it started and how it's growing, to whether or not its signals are carrying through or if it needs a little correction of the signal. So it's going to drop prescriptions for that. And then, like I said, so the prescriptions first, then growth, then it's going to look at your strengths and tell you the strengths, what strengths are really in this particular project. And then what weaknesses can be modified even more. Actually, it breaks it down as risk instead of weaknesses. I like it because it's a risk that if you keep it in this format, that it will come across a particular way. So now we've gone from that to the last part, which is after it's giving you the risk, it'll give you about 3 steps that you need to specifically do. And then after those 3 steps that it wants you to specifically do, and it tells you the KPI behind them, or the KPI you're looking for behind them, then right after that, it's going to give you one more piece of information. Once it's giving you the prescription, it's going to give you the actual recommendations for either the next step, or if you're only doing this as one solid thing and you want recommendations for whatever item you're reviewing, it's going to give you the recommendations for that item you're reviewing. So let's say if you're doing a book and it's got chapters, right? And so if it looks at recommendations, it's going to give you recommendations for the next chapter. So, and this is a full breakdown of recommendations. If this is about finalizing a book for any specific reason, it's going to give you 4 recommendations about finalizing that book for whatever specific reason. So if you understand those factors, then you'll understand the basis of how I use it, the Signalproof Analyzer, altogether. So now, once you put in the Signalproof Analyzer and you've had it run that information and you've gotten the information back, now this is where I start to get into the second stage of the outline. And I think this is important for me because now that I've gotten some understanding of what I can fix, what I can make better, I want to figure out how to make the whole story better. And in order to make the whole story or make the whole product or make the whole video or make whatever the item is that I'm making better, I need to start working on it again. I need to start writing again. I need to start developing it again or reshooting or whatever it is. So in this case, because we're talking about writing, I'm going to take that information. I'm going to sit down and delineate what prescriptions I want to use, what prescriptions actually make more sense to me and what prescriptions don't make sense about what I'm attempting to do for this particular piece of literature. Then the next is as I look down at the prescriptions, I'm going to look at the growth phase, growth, strengths, and weaknesses. And I'm going to look and see if the strengths and weaknesses are actually strengths and weaknesses, or if they're just things that it thought it was strengths and weaknesses. Or if these weaknesses actually fit, then I'll start to make modifications to those weaknesses. If those strengths aren't really my strengths and I need to strengthen it up a little bit more, then I'll make modifications to the strengths. Growth phase, I'm going to see if it's showing any growth in the middle or any time around it, because that might just be the case, that it has growth within it that can be extended that I'm not extending. So I'm going to take a look and see if there's any growth that I can make better, any growth that I can extend, any growth that I can amplify. And then once I've taken a look at strengths, weaknesses, and our strengths, risk, and growth, then I'm going to take a look at the full recommendations. Now, in the full recommendations, what I'm most likely going to see is all the details of everything that I can and can't do. Now, so recommendations are not always there to be followed. They are recommendations for a reason, because You're not saying that you have to follow them. They are recommended. And this is where it goes back to what I was saying before about making sure that these strengths and weaknesses are actually strengths and weaknesses, making sure that the prescriptions are the prescriptions that you really want to use, making sure that the strengths, the recommendations at the bottom are recommendations that fit. So this is all the same thing. And when we're talking about putting this together. And so now that you've gone through all that and you picked everything out, now it's time to start writing again. I'm going to go back to my text document and either use an audio text or just record my voice in general, and then go ahead and transcribe it back down to the same thing again. So now that I've gotten it, the new writing down, which is going to have a lot more detail, is going to have a lot more character development, world building development in it. So I'm now doubling down, layering down. Now I'm going to take that outline again, the original outline and the new outline, and I'm going to take all the information I just rewrote now, and I'm going to put that together with any other extra ideas. And I'm going to go back to the Signalproof Analyzer one more time, and I'm going to run another analysis. Why am I running another analysis? How close am I? I'm going to tell them this is the main document I'm working on, and let them know that although this is the main document I'm working on, I'm ready to try to attempt to get to the next level with this document, make this document better, do more with this document. So I give it instructions on where I'm at in it and in the development and what I'm seeking next in the development to make this much better. And so I'll go through that process. I might go through 5 to 6 or 7 or 8 outlines like this, because the rough draft may not be enough to make a whole story, and I need to really build out the story. Sometimes I do the outline in one go because my stories, when I get ready to write them, I have the whole story in mind. And so much so that I don't even realize I don't have just the whole story in mind. Usually I have 3, 4, 5, or 6 stories in mind. And it's crazy because I really only want to write one story, but the story extends out into a series almost every single time. But it's because I am building a world, and the whole thing about the world I've been building is it's always been about this idea of it is never ending, always expanding. Just like the real world, just like the real universe. So you kind of get caught in that no matter what. And so once I've gotten a full chapter down, or once I've gotten a full breakdown after going over this again, I'm pretty much close to the chapter. Now it's time for me to start editing chapters. Or start making sure all the chapters are laid out, and then start editing the chapters. So I'll start writing all the chapters out, just one by one, plugging all the chapters out one by one. Then once I have, and I like to do 13 chapters, I have this thing, because 13 times 5,500 comes out to like 65,000 words or more. And so when I'm doing that, I'm looking for the idea of making sure that I am going to complete a 55,000 to 65,000 word book. And so what ends up happening is I average in between 3,800 words to 6,800 words a chapter. So that fluctuation usually generally ends up putting me in the 65 to 75,000 words. My brothers and sisters and my uncles over there, and that's where I'm gonna be buried too. So right here, Los Angeles Veterans Memorial Cemetery. Okay, so now, gotten everything laid out the way I needed to, went through, started making the drafts, started making the chapters, and as I make the chapters, I get the whole book together. After 13 chapters are laid out, everything's nice, copacetic, looking good, 13 chapters are pumping, got it solid. Now, I run the whole book. Usually I'll go chapter by chapter and run each chapter through, but then in the end, I'll go chapter 1 and then check it. Chapter 1 plus chapter 2, chapter 1 plus chapter 2 plus chapter 3. So I start running the book in succession in order and doing analytics on each chapter as it combines into a book to see what I might need to fix, what I could fix to make better, what I could fix to really improve. So this is just like me actually taking it to an editor and going back and forth with an editor, but instead I'm going back and forth with a GPT, a learning language model, so that I don't have to spend time waiting for editors, because that's usually what happens. And while waiting for editors to get back to you, they give you all kind of changes, and it's a lump of changes, and you spend more time going through the whole book with changes. For me, now I can go chapter to chapter and improve before I even have to turn in the whole book. I don't have to worry about trying to waste somebody's time, because that's really what happens. If you wanted to actually go with an editor and go chapter to chapter, it would be like wasting their time. No editor is going to do that, because it's like trying to tell them, it's just waste, it's wasteful. The best way to do it would be to give them the whole manuscript and then come back and re-edit yourself. But like I said, I like the idea of being able to edit by chapter, go through it piece by chapter. By the time I'm done with all the chapters, everything comes out the way I wanted it to. And then I can go ahead and polish off the end of the rest of the book and then run it through and get a final analysis of it to tell me where it's at. And it'll also talk about how well it would do on whatever platform I'm going to use it. And so that's usually what happens. And then from that point on, I'll go out to publishing it, and then we go from there. But that's pretty much how I put books together. And that's the system that I keep going over. And yes, I've kind of shortened it at the end, but I've given you the basics at the very beginning on how it works, how I use the system, and how I make sure that I keep staying on point every single time, keeping the continuity, keeping the story the way I want it to, structuring the story, analyzing the story, and then making sure that all of everything is feeling the same within the story, and putting together prompts, putting together ideas, putting together things so that I can make sure that I analyze the story with the same processes every time. And so I keep a system going so that when I keep this system going, that I'll know every single time that I can do a book chapter by chapter and chunk it up, and it'll keep me from procrastinating, because I'm doing it one bit at a time, step at a time, every time I do it. And so that's what keeps me on point. That's the system I use, and that's my Signalproof system for it, because I use Signalproof methods in order to lay this out. It's a Signalproof methodology, the whole thing. I started with my truth. My truth is, I know for a fact that I will procrastinate if I have to write a whole book straight away. So I had to break it up into a system so that I could. Now, what that allows me to do is allows me to talk to the people who I'm loyal with and see what they think about certain things. Have them check on my book and other things and tell me all kind of other recommendations. And so now I can let them know, hey, I'm gonna write this particular book. Does this sound like something you would like to read? Does it sound like something that you're interested in? All right, now that I know that I have people interested in that particular type of content, now my next phase through this all is to figure out how much dedication, how much time I want to put into it. And as I said before, because I have a system, I know that I can put 13 days in once a day, at least once a day, not full days, but I can at least put 2 or 3 hours, or maybe even 4 hours, up to 4 hours in once a day for 13 days. If I can do that once a day for 13 days, now I know that I can complete a book. So as long as my schedule allows me to do that, then I'm good to go. And then now that I know that I can write that for a certain amount of days, now, and the reason why I say 1 to 4 hours is because it might take me 1 to 2 hours to put something together. Then we go through editing and analyzing. All that takes a little bit more time. Now I know if I can do that and I have the dedication for that, now I can actually start launching something and monitoring the growth. So all this is part of my Signalproof core 4 steps. And so I stick to the core 4 steps when I want to create something. I stick to the core 4 steps when I want to do something. I stick to the core 4 steps when I'm making plans for the future. And so these steps, like I said, they help me get shit done. That's what it's all about. It's all about building a system so that you can get everything you need to get done in the time frame you need to get it done. So with that being said, I hope that covers everything. I think it does, but we'll go ahead and maybe I'll even walk you through as I do something. I'll make up a story and we'll walk it through as I do something next time, and I can show you exactly how I do it and how I make it happen. This is Doc. If you like what I've been talking about, if you like what I've been sharing, please make sure you stop by wherever you follow your podcast, and make sure you stop by all my social media. Give me a like, give me a follow, and give me a subscription, and let me know what you think about this content. With that being said, peace. I'm out of here.